Has YouTube met your expectations after creating content for over a year? And how would you compare digital assets to something like a retail business or real estate? So it's far exceeded my expectations, Daniel. My goal for the channel after a year was to have 10,000 subscribers. So after 8 months or so, I had 100,000. And I don't know how much I had after a year, but it was way more than 10,000. So it's exceeded every expectation I could have possibly had. And it's not just the subscriber count. I mean, the people that I've had the opportunity to talk with on the Rebel Capitalist show and just the Rebel Capitalist Pro. I mean, being able to partner with just brilliant people like Lynn Alden and Chris McIntosh, it's really an honor. And I never thought it would come to this, but it has. And I'm just loving every minute of it. I wish that people around us would see the insanity in the world right now, but unfortunately they're not. It's just getting more and more insane. And even back in 2019, when I started the channel and I was talking about this stuff and talking about how dangerous big governments were, everyone says, oh, George, tinfoil hat, and you're just fear mongering and blah, 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 blah. And now, I mean, look at this, that the government is totally trying to control our lives in a way that's utterly ridiculous. No matter how fantastic you think masks are, and that's not even, whatever, it's fine. That's totally up to you. I'm not here to say they're great. I'm not here to say they're bad. I'm here to say that you should be left to your own decision-making as to whether or not you want to wear one. It should not be mandatory by the government, and businesses should be able to choose. But just think about how insane it is that you have to go into a restaurant. This is my whole experience in Vegas. You go into a restaurant and you sit down at your table and you don't have to wear a mask. But then as soon as you stand up and go to the restroom, now all of a sudden you have to wear a mask. Just even if you think masks are fantastic, ask you, how much sense does that make? Zero, none. It makes absolutely no sense. So then it comes to you got to ask yourself the question, well, why are they doing this? If it's not preventing anything, then why do it? The only conclusion I can come to is that's because they want to condition you into just being a lemming and just walking around like a zombie and just doing whatever the government tells you to do. It's you're delegating your thinking to the government, and they want to condition you to just do drugs and opiates, and every single corner has a dispensary. And I'm all for drugs being legal. But the push now is for you to just numb your mind. It's the greatest asset God gave you, is your mind. It's your mind. And I go to Vegas and people are just destroying it nonstop through the use of drugs. And they just numb themselves, and then they delegate all the thinking to the government. And it's just getting insane. But anyway, I don't know how I got, I know how I got off on that tangent, because I'm just pissed at this stuff. This Vegas is a nightmare. It's a town that I used to enjoy going to so often, and it's just ruined. It's just for what? And people have to understand. Here, I'll go off on this rant, then I'll go back to the questions. That if you're someone that believes that we should be able to make our own decisions, I think people are framing the argument wrong, because you've got one side that says we should be in full lockdown. We should not be allowed to leave the house. We need to just lock down for 6 weeks. And we just need to thank goodness we have our overlords in the government controlling us to the degree that we can be safe. And we don't have to worry about the virus, because the government is so powerful and so knowing and so knowledgeable that all I have to do is stay in my house, and they can just give me these stimulus checks and we can get rid of the virus. So you have that one argument. Okay, fine. Then you have the other argument saying that, okay, we don't like that approach. We want more of a liberty. We should be able to make our own decisions. But the argument isn't being framed well at all. They're saying either COVID doesn't exist, or they're just saying, oh, it's not that bad. Okay, fine, but that's not a good way to argue the other side. What you have to do is people need to realize that just taking the government's numbers for what they are, right? The question isn't if we're going to have a million deaths, what can we do to have 500,000? That's not an option. That's not an option. Zero option. And people don't understand that. The only option is, do you have a million deaths now or in the future? Because you're going to have them. That's it. You're going to have them. So and obviously, I'm not assuming that you are the hospital capacity isn't overwhelmed. And then you say, well, we could get a vaccine. You lower the amount of cases out there. You lower the amount of people that get it, and we get a vaccine. You lower the deaths. Okay, fine. What if we don't get a vaccine? We don't have a vaccine for HIV. We don't have a vaccine for the common cold. So what do? We just go the next 20 years under full lockdown? How many people lose their lives? So when you think about it in those terms, you have to ask yourself, it's not about, there isn't an option where we go from 1 million people dead to 500,000. That's off the table. The only option is, do you rip the Band-Aid off and have 1 million people get it and get to herd immunity, and then you're done. Then you keep going. I think that's what we have to think through as far as the intellectual debate. And I'm not here to say that one is right or one is wrong. I'm saying that the debate is wrong. People aren't understanding the options. They're thinking as though there's this option where we kill 1 million people. Okay, no mask. You kill 1 million people. Okay, fine, we get it. And then the other option is we only kill 100,000, but we have to go into lockdown for 6 weeks. That's not an option, guys. It's not an option. When you're dealing with something like this, it's going to go through. It's going to get as many people as it's going to get. You're not going to stop it. You're just going to prolong it until we get to herd immunity. So anyway, I know you guys aren't here to hear me rant on about that, but I just really think that the argument should be completely reframed to where we're talking about facts. We're not talking about feelings. We're not talking about what makes you feel good. We're talking about the actual facts. And that is that you're not going to slow this down, or you're not going to reduce the number of deaths by slowing it down, unless we're talking about hospital capacity. That's a completely separate topic. Or you say we get a vaccine, but then you have to use a cost-benefit analysis by saying, okay, how long is it going to take to get that vaccine? And if we don't get it, then what? Then how much economic damage do you do? And if you do that much economic damage, how many millions and millions and millions of people die as a result of the unemployment rate going to 15 to 20 to 25 to 30%? You see, there's no cost-benefit analysis here. There's no thinking whatsoever. All we're doing as a society is feeling. And it's just driving me crazy. All right, let's see here. So digital assets, they're fantastic if you know what you're doing, and I think they're just as good as a retail business. I think they're way better than a retail business. As far as real estate, I like real estate quite a bit because you can make a lot of money on the buy side. And the digital assets are tough because you got to put in a lot of work. Most people don't understand how much work it takes me to do just like a 20-minute video. That's like 2 days of work. It's like one complete day of shooting and editing. And that's without me having to do any research if I don't know the topic, if I don't know the topic well enough to teach it. So, but yeah, I mean, if you look at all the things combined as far as your barrier to entry, which is relatively low, depending on what you're doing, it's just, I think it makes all the sense in the world.